Aloha, good afternoon. Will the Committee on Energy, Environment, and Sustainability please come to order? It's 2:32 p.m. I'd like to welcome Committee Vice Chair Dos Santos Tam and Councilmember Tolba. Committee Member Tupola is excused from today's meeting. Pursuant to Section 92-3.7 Hawaii Revised Statutes, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda in two ways, remotely and in person in the council chamber. Remote and in-person oral testimony will be allowed when the agenda item is taken up. As both English and Hawaiian are official languages of the state, pursuant to Article 15, Section 4 of the Constitution and Section 1-13 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes, members of the public may testify in either language. For oral testimonies offered in Honolulu, Hawaii, additional time as may be necessary will be allowed for the testifier to provide an English translation of their testimony if they so wish. Before testifying, each person shall state their name. Each speaker may not have anyone else read their statement and is limited to a 1-minute presentation on any item. All persons who have registered to testify remotely by video conference or phone will be called upon first. When your name is called, please monitor your screen and activate your audio feed when prompted. I will then give persons who have not registered an opportunity to offer testimony. Please utilize the raise hand feature in Zoom to be called upon. For those who are joining us by telephone only, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. I will then identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. When your phone number is called, please press *6 to unmute yourself. Some friendly reminders and tips. Video conference from a quiet location if possible. If you're also watching the proceedings on Honolulu, please mute your television at the time you're called to testify. When the timer on the screen reaches 0, please conclude your remarks. Once all remote testifiers have testified, I'll proceed to in-person testimony in the council chamber. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to speak following the oral testimonies of the registered speakers. HRS Section 92-3.7 requires all votes at remote meetings to be conducted by roll call vote unless unanimous. Therefore, I will first call for objections, and if there are any, I'll call for a roll call vote. For those council members participating from outside of the council chamber, in accordance with HRS Section 92-3.7, the meeting will automatically recess if we lose audiovisual contact with you and cannot reconvene until we reestablish contact. Therefore, please announce beforehand if you will be voluntarily signing out of the meeting. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, we ask everyone to turn off their cell phones, and that brings us for action to agenda item number 1, Resolution 26-61, confirming the appointment of Darian Chun to serve on the Board of Water Supply of the City and County of Honolulu for a term to expire on June 30th, 2030. Members, we have a hand-carried CD1 submitted by myself, CD1 OCS 2026-0192/3/31/26, time 12:52 p.m., makes the following amendments. Amends the title of the resolution to read, confirming the appointment of Darian Chun to serve on the Board of Water Supply of the City and County of Honolulu, corrects the date of the expiration term, removes reference the replacement of Brian Andaya's seat, and instead references appointment to a vacant seat on the board, and makes other miscellaneous and technical non-substantive amendments. Now, members, we want to welcome Mr. Chun, the appointee, up to the podium to do an introduction. If you want to just state your name, push the button, just make sure the red light is on for the speaker. And I'll just open up with maybe if you could share a little bit about your background and what that brings to your service, and also, things you want to maybe look at or work on.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Darian Chun. I'm, as Councilman Wire said, my first employment was with Kiewit. And after I worked with Kiewit, I worked for Gentry Homes. And then I went to work for Delta Construction. And after that, then Royal Contracting. And then I went back to work for Castle & Cook. And after that, I went back to Royal Contracting, where I'm at currently. As you can see, my background has been both on the development and also on the contractor side. When I was at Castle & Cook, I was the director of site development. And so we're currently building, or when I was there, we're working on and building, and they're currently building a water source and storage for the Coral Ridge development and other future developments. So I do have some knowledge about that type of system that the Board of Water Supply is working on. I worked with Irwin on a couple of things. And so I hope that I could bring my knowledge of construction and also development to the board, because I'm always looking for ways to help the community and also to make our island and our residents able to afford homes and make it more cost effective for them. I'm also on a couple of legislative committees, the GCA and NIOP, and therefore I try to help with the bills to make it more cost effective and affordable for our residents and homeowners and even our college graduates to come back home and work here. There's been a lot of people that have left the islands. I know there's about 20,000 people a year that's been leaving the islands to work on the mainland, and if we can get that brain power to come back and live in Hawaii, we can make Hawaii a better place to live. And so that's why I'm always here trying to find a way to make it more cost effective and affordable for everyone to live here. Right now, I hope I can give my experience to help the board out and find future sources in the future. Thank you.
Mahalo, appreciate that. Any questions from the committee members at this time? Seeing none, Councilmember Toba.
I just wanted to say I appreciate Mr. Chan's time on Zoom. I appreciate the the wealth of knowledge you bring to this commission, and hopefully all things he's saying about affordable, and making sure that some of our young minds that went away come back, so that we can, again, like you said, I'm just echoing everything that you say. It's so important for us to have them come back and live in a place that we all grew up, and hopefully we'll in our last days at. So appreciate you coming by, and I appreciate you giving yourself up to be a part of this commission.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Mahalo, echo those sentiments. Seeing no other questions, we'll go ahead and go to testimony. So mahalo, Mr. Chan. I know we don't have anybody online to testify, so we'll go to in person, and we do have Erin Kawata from the Board of Water Supply providing testimony. Seeing no other registered folks, anyone wanting to testify can come forward. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and in testimony with
Good
you as well.
afternoon, committee chair and committee members. Erwin Kawata with the Board of Water Supply. We stand on our written testimony in support of Resolution 26-61 relating to the appointment of Mr. Darian Chun to serve as a member of the Board of Water Supply. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for the testifier? Seeing none, mahalo again for your testimony. We'll go ahead and close testimony, members, and move into discussion. Was there any additional discussion before making my recommendation? Seeing none, the chair is going to recommend that Resolution 2661 be amended to the hand-carried CD1 identified as OCS 2026-0192/331-2026. Any discussion, objections, or reservations on that? Hearing none, the resolution has been amended to CD1. The chair is then going to recommend be reported out for adoption. That's Resolution 26-61 CD1. Any further discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. So this measure has passed out of committee. So mahalo again for your willingness to serve, and look forward to finalizing it at the council meeting. Thank you. And then we'll move to agenda item number 2, informational briefing, update by the Department of Environmental Services on the City and County of Honolulu Integrated Plan. Joining us in the council chamber is Director Roger Babcock, who will be providing a brief presentation on ENV's integrated plan. For your information, the presentation is available online. It's Departmental Communication 224-2026. Mahalo, Dr. Babcock, as you get it set up for being here. I know you've been extremely busy over the past 2 weeks and beyond. And so we'll turn it over to you when you're ready.
Yeah, good afternoon, Chair Wire, committee members, Roger Babcock, Department of Environmental Services. Happy to give you an update, talk about our integrated planning efforts that we're doing in the department in conjunction, very close conjunction with Stormwater Quality Division which is part of Department of Facility Maintenance. So there are some slides, and thanks, Ryan. So yeah, I can advance them if need be. Oh, that's all the way to the end. So I'm going to introduce what integrated planning is and then tell you what we're doing. Okay, so there's the first slide. And so it kind of describes what integrated planning is. It's an official EPA program that exists that you could find on the EPA website. And, in broad strokes, basically, the EPA recognizes the burden on communities from compliance with multiple Clean Water Act programs. And specifically, these are the NPDES programs. So there's an NPDES, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, permits associated with wastewater treatment plants, but also associated with stormwater systems. And so the city, of course, has both of those types of permits. So we have NPDES permits for the 4 largest treatment plants, the ones that discharge into the ocean. And then we have, Stormwater has an NPDES permit, it's called an MS4 permit, Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System Permit, which is also an NPDES permit. And they both have various types of requirements and conditions and limitations that need to be met. They're very extensive, all kinds of planning and infrastructure required, monitoring, et cetera. And they they're issued these permits, which are 5 years in duration. They have to be renewed every 5 years. And generally they become, there are new requirements that are stricter, require more effort, and that adds up to additional costs associated with these programs. And the 2 programs historically are completely independent. They're different branches of the EPA, and they look at needs associated with the environment and human health of both of those sort of programs separately. And the states and counties and municipalities started, going to the EPA through legislators and saying, it's just these 2 things combined are just stacking on top of each other, and they're just becoming too much. We can't do everything. So EPA set up this program to basically integrate, to look at the programs in a more holistic way, the 2 different programs, and try to then use like a prioritization process to see what's the best way to use the public's limited dollars to have the best impact, and look at these 2 programs together. So as a big picture, that's what it's all about. It's really interesting, right, to think about, okay, let's take a holistic view and see what makes the most sense. So that is what it is about. It provides a long-term strategy for improved water quality while addressing both community concerns. So it's really bringing the community in is a really important part of it, as well as economic concerns. And so the little figure on the right shows you the different, the 6 elements of an integrated planning sort of framework. Understanding the requirements, characterizing the systems, connecting with stakeholders. Stakeholders is really a key part of the program. Developing and evaluating alternatives, and then measuring how things are working out, and then adapting and continuing in a circle. So that's kind of the big picture of what it is. Next slide, Ryan, thank you very much. And across the top there, I'm showing those 6, sort of those 6 steps. And the first one is kind of the drivers. And the drivers are, kind of listed here. The idea is to address the community's highest priority water quality concerns first, before lower quality ones, lower priority ones, I guess you'd say. Maintaining affordable rates is important, right? That's important to all of us, while still making investments necessary to meet all of the requirements. And so sometimes it is about priority. So prioritization really means timing, essentially, in this case. It's important to meet requirements. This process doesn't allow you to get out of meeting requirements. It allows you to prioritize them and set up a cost affordable program to reach everything in the appropriate time. So to spend your money on the most important things first and let other things wait until you have funding available. So just so you know, we're also collaborating with our One Water plan. We've talked about that, about the One Water planning. That's a big effort that's underway now. That effort is finishing up this year. And there is also a stormwater master planning effort that's also going on in parallel. And they have their funding for that in FY26, and that is about to get started. Some of the things that are over there that were listed as public priority or community concerns would be things like beach closures, urban runoff, green space, water quality, supply reliability, cultural practices, climate adaptation, flooding, cesspools, construction disruptions, environmental justice, and sustainable growth. So those are all some of the things that people can be concerned about and express their concerns, and it can lead to this prioritization. Okay, so next slide, thank you. So some of the opportunities then that are provided that we sort of identified, and I think we mentioned that we did do an integrated planning feasibility study first that was completed last year, or perhaps the year before, 24 or 25. And we did identify some of these opportunities at that time and decided then to go ahead with the full integrated planning study, which is underway now, is in full steam. So some of the way the process works is we do need to get community input on our priorities. We involve the stakeholders in the definition of the project evaluation criteria and sequencing. So we don't just determine that. DOH doesn't determine that. EPA doesn't determine that. We all do it together. And then there is a project resequencing and development of spending schedule. So that is really what the process involves and why we're doing it, right? Because you all know how big our capital program is for sewer, but there's also a big capital program needs for stormwater, which you haven't heard as much about because they don't have as much of a long-range plan as we do. But the key goals are greater benefits to water quality and the community priorities sooner. So the community priorities thing is important, right? Because a lot of what we do in wastewater, the community doesn't see, and they don't know what the benefits are and what's happening. They do know about urban runoff. They do know about stream maintenance and brown water and stuff like that. So it is important that those things are considered. And so it's also a key goal is to ensure affordability. We do have to comply with our NPDES permits and be adaptable to future regulations, which I'll talk a little bit more about. And it also enhances relations with customers, community regulators, city council, everybody, to understand what our goals are and what it's going to cost to achieve them. And because, as I mentioned, there isn't necessarily a good awareness of what the taxpayers and the fee payers' money is being spent on and why we have to do it. Okay, next slide. So a little bit about some of the key issues. Wastewater sewer fees, as we know, those are increasing to take care of our program that we've identified. And all of the projects that are in that program, or most of them, will be included in the integrated plan. So it can directly affect the sewer fees. This just shows, showing the years from 26 going out through 2031, and it kind of shows the EPA affordability criteria over there. common US EPA definition of affordability is 2% of the median household income. And we were around 1%, but it is increasing, and we'll be getting close to that 2% number, depending on whether you look at the mean bill or the median bill. Mean bill is the average bill, and the median bill is 50%. So 50% of the people are higher or lower than the median. The mean is a higher number because there are some high water users that skew the average bill up higher. So that's the wastewater. I'll say more about that in a minute. Under the stormwater, we have the stormwater utility and generally the requirements of the stormwater NPDES permit. They did complete a study in 2020 on the formation of that, but so far that has not borne fruit yet. They are beginning the stormwater master plan, and I will talk a little bit more, I think, or I can answer questions about some of their specific things. They have lots of programs that have lots of requirements, and one of them is called the TMDL program. So it's called Total Maximum Daily Loads, and the state has done studies on streams and to figure out what pollutant reductions are required. And they have a whole series of TMDLs that have been completed, and they have deadlines to comply with various requirements, pollutant load reductions for Alawai Canal, Kava Stream, Kapa'a Stream, Kaneohe Stream, Waimanalo Stream, North Fork of the Kaukonahua Stream, and the Waikele Stream. They also have a island-wide trash reduction program that came out in 2015, and by 2024 or 2023 they had to reduce trash into the streams by 50%, and by 2034 they have to have 100% reduction. And so it's a very tall order, to do that. So anyway, they have a lot of restrictions. You've heard a lot about our wastewater ones. Some of the ones that you haven't heard as much about, and they're not in they weren't in the rate study, is dieldrin, which is a pesticide that was used for treatment of termites. It was a termiticide used up through the 80s. But it's in our soil now, and it does leach out in the groundwater, and we have a very new restrictive permit limitation. You've heard a little bit about PFAS, the forever chemicals. There's pending regulations for that. And then we also have what's called the UIC, the Underground Injection Control. This is the Supreme Court ruling against the County of Maui to require NPDES permits for injection wells from treatment plants. And we have 3 treatment plants that have injection wells. That includes the one in Haleiwa, the one in Kahuku, and the one in Waimanalo, which we need to find solutions for, and they will be very costly. So those are some of the potential things that are facing us that we hope to use to benefit from the integrated planning process. Okay, so a little bit about schedule. So we did do the feasibility study. There it is. It was finished in 2025. It was done in 2024, 2025. We do have ongoing stakeholder engagement with the EPA, Region 9 out of San Francisco. That's our region. And our Department of Health Clean Water Branch. And we did have a meeting last Monday, the 24th. We had 3 people in town from San Francisco for Region 9 who had us set up a meeting with Department of Health. We had about 20 people from the Department of Health, not just Clean Water Branch. And we talked all about the integrated planning and our effort and requesting and receiving their input and their agreement to participate with us during this process. So they're very much understand the process and will be part of it. There's also our agency stakeholder group. We call it our Stormwater Wastewater Advisory Group that has been meeting for several years. Started with the Stormwater Utility Formation Group, and then continued with our sewer fees work that we did, and now continuing still with all of those, but also adding in the integrated planning. and so they're very helpful. We just had a meeting with them last week also to go over a public survey that we've developed as part of an initial step of the integrated planning, a general public survey. So they worked with us on that for a couple hours last week. And then we also have the general public. We have workshops scheduled for that, and of course, City Council. So we're doing the system characterization and needs development right now. So by this summer, we'll finish with that. Identifying the projects, evaluation and prioritization about a year from now in the summer of next summer. We're looking to get the plan completed and accepted by 2027, end of 2027, and begin implementing it in 2028. I'll say a little bit more about schedule here in a minute. Just to give you an idea about how this works. So you basically have projects or functions that are scored using multiple criteria. And again, the public and other stakeholders get to weigh in on what the criteria are. There'll be multiple criteria. And projects and functions are scored on each criteria. And the criteria are the different colors on the bars there. And so you see there's 5 different projects. This is all hypothetical. 5 different projects scored on 5 different benefit criteria. And so you can see each project can have different scores on each criteria. And then you sort of add them up to get different totals for the total benefit of a project. And then you can sort of rank them based on how they come out on the benefit scale. And the public and others will be involved both in determining what the criteria are, what the weight of the different criteria are, and what the scores are for each project. And it just kind of shows an example of these 2 hypothetical projects, 3 and 4. They end up with the same total score, but for different reasons. One may score have high strength on water quality and regulatory compliance, and another project there is very high scoring on quality of life and public health and safety. So those are to give you kind of an idea of kind of about how that process works. Next slide shows a little bit about the opportunities for stakeholder engagement. So EPA and Department of Health are important key players in this because they are the ones who issue our permits. So they have to sort of buy into the process and agree in the end that that the integrated plan we come up with is valid and acceptable, and essentially include that in our permits. So there's just some questions there, but basically we plan to have regular meetings to share our progress and to solicit their feedback, and we did have a very good meeting last week already with them. City departments, what sort of projects how it will fit in with One Water, how it fits in with other projects that they have. And so we have facilitated workshops to define shared objectives and opportunities. Our advisory group, we have quarterly report outs to compile feedback, and they'll also be involved with determining what the criteria are and the scoring and the weights and that kind of stuff. And then finally, the public. So we're starting with a survey to understand priorities, and then we have 3 public meetings scheduled to share alternatives and incorporate feedback into the evaluation. Next slide shows a little bit more about the public outreach planning. And again, across kind of the 6 boxes in the top middle are the 6 different steps. And so shows like the needs assessment, develop alternative concepts, et cetera, and kind of showing where we are in a timeline. At the very bottom, we see spring of 2026. We're kind of in spring now. We have had our agency workshop number 1. So far, that's the only workshop that we've completed. We've written our public survey. We've gotten a lot of feedback on it. We're going to be finishing that up and sending it out and getting as much feedback as we can from that public survey. The next step is a second agency workshop where we look at alternative projects and trying to put projects and activities. Activities could be things like stream cleaning, for example. We're not positive that that can be included yet, but there are certain other activities like green infrastructure maintenance and certain other activities that could be included. Then we will have public meeting number 1 in the fall timeframe. Then there's an agency workshop number 3. We're prioritizing, and in a public meeting, then do the prioritizing of the alternatives, and then figuring out the path forward and presenting the draft plan and public meeting number 3 in the fall of 2027. So that kind of gives you an idea of how we're the different workshops and public meetings that we have planned. A little bit more about the public outreach plan. This is somewhat duplicated from the previous thing, but it gives them some specific information. So public meeting number 1, we'll be sharing the goals, the wastewater and stormwater needs, the initial project concepts, and then we want input on what the community's priorities are and projects that they're interested in, and including things that we don't have on there, for example. Public meeting number 2 is to share the projects that are being fully evaluated and the metrics for evaluation, and we get input on the weighting of the metrics for the project evaluation. And then number 3, we share the draft, and we get feedback on that, and to help finalize to make a final integrated plan. So that's how we've laid that out, and that is my last slide. But I would be happy to, answer any questions. One of the things is that this is not the first integrated plan that's ever been written in the United States. There's quite a few, and we, the consultant we chose has done integrated plans before, but also we reached out to several other jurisdictions or counties, municipalities that have done an integrated plan, and we picked some that we really liked, or we thought we liked the way theirs came out, and we've had meetings with them online, and we got some really good information about how to proceed, how the things that were important to get support from, and one of them is from our city council. We're really pleased that you invited us here and that you want to know about this. It is important that we have support, for this, for doing this, for moving forward, and having understanding by council that this is important and why we're doing it, right? We're doing it ultimately for our ratepayers and for the taxpayers to make sure that they're getting the best value for their dollars, right? The dollars are limited. But anyway, we learned about how some other places, how it really worked out really well, and from other ones, things to avoid, problems that, to avoid. So folks are very happy to share, and the EPA was as well. So we were encouraged by what we heard from EPA last week. So we think it's going to be a successful project and effort. It is a lot of work, and but the benefits are there, and we really need to have this work out because there are some really big things coming that for both programs, that we really feel like it's going to be a really big challenge for the county to meet all at once. And so we really need to be able to do the prioritization and do the things that really have a big benefit now, and delay things that are less beneficial and potentially very expensive. So.
Appreciate that. Hear you on that. And I guess my takeaway, not a question, maybe that's an option for us to consider, avoiding not need-based tax relief at the moment until we can figure out how we're going to pay for everything. But I'm going to keep you right there, Director. I'm going to go to testimony. We don't have anyone online. So we'll go in person, no registered. Anyone wanting to testify can come forward. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close testimony and go to questions for Director. I had a few, but I'll open it up if anyone had any. Councilmember Toba.
Thank you, Chair. Director, so are we confident they will meet the 2035? Because this all these new projects are supposed to make things a lot, hopefully affordable for taxpayers. Are we 2035 San Island deadline? How's that going along? And the last question is like, what is the backup plan if the new federal requirements, right, like PFAS rules, increase the costs?
So there was a couple. One, the 2034 date was the 100% trash reduction, which is a stormwater thing. 100% is almost laughable. Excuse me. We never have requirements that are 100%. Whether that's actually achievable is questionable. But with respect to the Sand Island secondary, for 2035, we are on schedule for that to make everything happen for that. But then there are some other mandates that are in the future that we have not, we're not in the financial plan that was part of the sewer fee increase from last year. They do show up, and we have some numbers in the CIP, but those are currently, not funded. And the biggest one is the dieldrin at Kailua treatment plant. You'll see in the 6-year CIP that we put in a large number in there, I think $750 million, which is a big number. And that is that is one of the projects that we hope to delay. It currently needs to be completed by 2035. It is in the permit. And the other potential projects that that EPA especially brought up too was the cesspools that we've been working on. If those in the public, for example, decides that those are a higher priority than XYZ, then those get moved up. Currently, because they're not required in NPDS, we can push them away, right? We can push them off. So those are the kinds of things that are part of this evaluation, and that's why it's really interesting. So it's like, the public says, yeah, we want this, then that can be what happens, in this plan. So, yep.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mahalo for that and those questions. I just had a couple. I know there's a lot of conversation that's going to be happening in terms of response to the HONOLULU'S, and my understanding is MD is kind of leading the charge on some of the broader response, but I'm just curious how the most recent events factor into the community outreach and the discussions and the broader conversation about flood mitigation, emergency response, all of that.
Yeah, so it's a really good question. Right now, in terms of stormwater program and their MS4 permit, and they have what's called TMDLs, total maximum daily load, and they're for certain streams, and then they have sort of general things. So they have requirements associated with trash, they have requirements associated with erosion, they have requirements associated with other nutrients, and a lot of that stuff has to do with essentially urban runoff. So streams and perhaps stream maintenance and brown water are water quality concerns, issues, and so they potentially can be linked into this planning process. We are still trying to figure that out and how that can work out. We already know from any time we talk about stormwater or the stormwater utility or anything like that, people are very interested in the streams and the stream maintenance and stream clearing and that their effects on the potentially on flooding, but also on nearshore water quality, right? Brown water. After these storms, the water is brown. Don't go in the water. It's not. There's brownwater advisories that don't enter the water. So that's important, and it seems like that will be a very high-level concern of the public in our meetings. And so then that will be reflected in the plan. And then we will, along the way, we'll also be working with, of course, with DOH and EPA and obtaining guidance about how things can fit in and how they need to be, how we can factor them in with the scoring and the process and the prioritization.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I mean, both from the flood mitigation side, but then I think there's also been, right, a lot of data collection going on. I know DOH is supposed to be out there around Oahu doing, sampling of the water, of the mud. And so I think it's both the water coming down and managing that, but then of course, like you mentioned, the cesspool contamination. I think folks have concerns about the contamination from upland water flow, right, through military fire zones or firing ranges and then other construction activity and types of land. And so, I mean, I think it all ties into water quality. And then, of course, the sewage people are living in on the ground. And so that's, I mean, I think it does all tie into water quality in a lot of ways.
Yes, absolutely. And so then the other part that I didn't show on here is we've reached out also to the state, to DLNR, because they're related. That's important, responsible for the watersheds. And we're also the nearshore environment also is a receiver of the stormwater, essentially. And so there's, impacts, as you've seen as well, with respect to the coral and the aquatic life.
So kind of going down the line of like stormwater management, could you just walk through kind of the full scope of that? I mean, when we're talking about the ponding that we saw, the cesspool or septic overflowing, right? Everybody's at capacity. Is that all factored into the integrated plan in terms of response, or is that like a separate discussion in terms of disaster preparedness and flood mitigation?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So the issues, any issues associated with water quality that would be, especially those that are regulated, are fair game, right, to include. I think disaster preparedness is kind of a different thing, but water quality and human health protection projects and programs that benefit that and fall within the Clean Water Act will be included. So yeah, it's all part of the process.
Appreciate that. You said it's different, but I wonder, is it fair to characterize it as like a spectrum? Because I mean, you go from stormwater management, it all kind of works up towards managing stormwater, right?
It does. So, stormwater and runoff is related to what's happening throughout the watershed that the water comes in contact with. So, absolutely.
Okay. I see another question. I just wanted to kind of hone in. I think some questions came up about the city's pumping capacity. I think Chair had astutely asked some questions and some other folks. Do you have any info on that? I know that wasn't known at the budget briefing, but in terms of what city pumping capacity does, entails both in terms of its own obligations and then what is available on the community support side.
So, Chair, you're referring to cesspool and septic tank pumping? Or?
Yeah, septic and then also ponding water, where we had standing water across the island. Yeah.
Right. So there would be two different things. So in terms of septic tank and cesspool pumping, that's one thing. And so that is what ENV is partly able to do. General flooding pumping is not something that ENV does, right? We've got wastewater, so it's got to be about wastewater. DFM does the pumping for flood ponding water from flooding. So they were out there doing all the pumping in the North Shore. With respect to pumping from, in ordinance, where the city, ENV, is able to pump cesspools not septic tanks. It's in ordinance, and there's a fee associated with it. We have a small team that does that work, and it's kind of a relic of when the ordinance was written, that some provision should be in place for cesspools to be pumped by the city. But it was not meant to be that the city would pump, all cesspools, but we needed to have some ability to do that. And the fee is for that service, there's a fee, is very low compared to commercial pumping operations. So we call commercial operations liquid waste haulers, and you have to have a permit from Department of Environmental Service. And there's at least 35 companies on the island that have those permits to do liquid waste hauling, because there's perhaps 10,000 cesspools and some much smaller number of septic tanks on the island. So those folks do need to have their tanks pumped periodically. And most of that work, at least 9/10 of it, or much more than that, are done by these private companies. And so the city function is not meant to compete with or take away work from these private companies. The city is not supposed to do that, right? And our rate is much less, probably a third or less than what it would cost for a commercial pumper. So there are many companies, and some of those companies are mom and pop with one truck. Some of them are large companies with 10 or a dozen or more trucks, and they're located, all over the island, and they're ready to provide that function. So there's quite a bit of capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to add on to ask, so I guess the question would be, so if we're contemplating, we'll use the word disaster, understanding it's a spectrum, but emergency situation, private sector can't fulfill its obligations, people are in sewage, overflowing, messing. Would the path forward to that be a part of ENV's work in integrated planning, or would that be something that DM should be incorporated into their broader planning and then working with city departments to identify solutions?
Yeah, I think so. That's more of an emergency type function.
Okay.
Having capacity and perhaps plans in place to be able to handle emergency situations.
Has Director Collins reached out to you to get ENV's insight on that type of planning?
Not yet. I think
Okay.
we'll be
Regarding the DFM pumping, so I'm just curious, so can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Because again, I'm seeing it spectrum part of stormwater management, but is that more in the disaster planning side as well, or how does that incorporate?
Yeah, so it's part of the functions of DFM to be able to clear roads, for example, do debris clearance, and various other functions associated with their operations, including they do have portable pumps, diesel-powered pumps, where they can pump water from in flood situations. So they have some capacity for that, but I'm not sure what the total capacity is for that. But yeah, that would be part of their function.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it would be part of the integrated planning necessarily. But I'm not sure.
Okay, appreciate that. Any other questions on the committee? Okay, seeing none. I'm extremely grateful for all your work. I know you probably haven't slept much in the past 2 weeks. So I know that we did testimony already. And so members, if there's no further discussion, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 3:22. Mahalo.